The CAW has always had a rich history in the struggle to end violence against women, but in 1989, something would happen that would have a major impact on the conversation around the issue of gender-based violence around the nation and within our own union. On December 6, 1989, a lone gunman entered École Polytechnique. He separated the women from the men, and he murdered 14 engineering students, 14 students who were shot dead solely because they were women. In the wake of what is now known as the Montreal Massacre, there was a lot of dialogue taking place, both inside and outside of the union movement. Progressive men and women were demanding that governments, employers, and society address gender-based violence and engage as they never had before. CAW women activists, leadership, and staff strategized on what role the union could play to assist our members facing violence in their personal lives. From those discussions, the idea of a women's advocate program was born, a program that would see the creation of a workplace leadership position to help women in our union access community and workplace supports when facing violence in their lives. The Women's Advocate Program became a bargaining priority of the CAW Women's Department and was debated, supported, and endorsed at the 1993 CAW Bargaining Convention. As a result, in 1993, the CAW negotiated our first women's advocates, 27 in total, at General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler.
The delegates also unanimously endorsed a renewed effort to have women's advocates in every workplace to stop violence.
Women's advocate in your workplace can absolutely help a sister that's dealing with that type of a situation. I highly recommend that everybody in this room go back to their workplaces and get it negotiated into your collective agreements.
I challenge every man in this local, I've been in this local for 36 years in this union, to go back to their workplaces and not just end the physical abuse, but the psychological abuse. Make sure that we get women's advocates in every plant because we need them.
In 1998, the first Women's Advocate was negotiated outside of the Big Three. By 2005, the Women's Advocate program had been successfully negotiated into every sector of our union, and by 2007, there were a total of 87 advocates, predominantly in Ontario. By this time, the Women's Department had also developed significant resource materials, including the Women's Advocate Toolkit, the brochure What If We Had a Women's Advocate in All CAW Workplaces, the Management Support Guide, and a 40-hour Women's Advocate training program. In 2009, the CAW negotiated their 120th Women's Advocate at Woodingford Lodge, a local 636 workplace. This particular negotiation was especially profound after the domestic homicide of Sandra Schott, a local 636 member. After her tragic murder, negotiating women's advocates became a local union priority for all local 636 workplaces. And today, in 2012, there are 219 women's advocates in the CAW, including further geographic growth outside of Ontario. And while the actual number of advocates is important, according to Sister Julie White, Director of the CAW Women's Department, the success of the Women's Advocate program will be measured not only by the number of advocates we have negotiated in our collective agreements, but also by the hundreds of CAW women who have been supported, believed, validated, and empowered. Not only has bargaining women's advocates been a priority during negotiations, but training has as well. The CAW Women's Department offers a 40-hour basic training program to all new advocates, as well as a 3-day annual update training program, both of which are now being facilitated at the CAW Family Education Centre in Port Elgin. This education not only trains women's advocates, but also creates women leaders in the workplace and in the union who continue, every day, to provide resources and support to women leaving violent relationships. This is what some people have to say about the program. Barb McQuarrie, Community Director of the Centre for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children at the University of Western Ontario, had this to say. Programs like the CAW's Women's Advocate raise awareness about violence and better allow women a way out of violent situations. The Women's Advocate program is a model program which should be implemented in all workplaces across the country. And Belinda Leach, Associate Professor at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, University of Guelph, said the following: "Women's participation in the labor force has long been recognized as essential to the promotion of equality. Our research suggests that dedicated union women's advocates promote workplace equity at the same time that they assist individual women." And from Sister Peggy Nash, past assistant to the President, "One of the best tools the union has to prevent violence against women and workplace harassment is the Women's Advocate Program. Make negotiating this tremendous resource a priority and work to end violence against women." But the role of the Women's Advocate is not solely about the workplace. In fact, women's advocates have historically played a significant role in the community as well. Advocates help to organize community events, forums, and rallies to raise awareness on the issue of gender-based violence.
CAW Women's Advocates, leaders, and members celebrated International Women's Day at events across Canada. In London, they were challenged to be more politically active.
And they become involved in issue-based campaigns and political action that has a direct impact on the lives of women. The National Child Care Program. Bill 168, an act to amend the Occupational Health and Safety Act with respect to violence and harassment in the workplace. This victory belongs to CAW Women's Advocates, local union leadership, and members of coalition groups formed after the workplace murders of Teresa Vince and Laurie DuPont, said Sister Julie White. Bill C-391, an act to amend the long gun registry. "We would not have won this battle without the commitment and lobbying efforts of many leaders and activists in our union, including our negotiated women's advocates," said Ken Lowenza, CAW President.
We can't make changes to ending violence against women if we don't have a national child care program, if we don't have affordable housing for women, if we don't have pay equity legislation.
The Women's Advocate Program has been recognized by the International Labour Organization, or the ILO, as a program that needs to be present in workplaces around the world. The CAW Women's Department has been invited to the 57th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in 2013, where the theme is the elimination and prevention of all forms of violence against women and girls. The CAW will share with women leaders and activists from around the world our experiences, our challenges, our bargaining strategies, and our many successes. This promises to be a very proud moment for our union, a moment that, without the courage, determination, and commitment of the hundreds of CAW women's advocates, would not have been possible. So, from its inception in 1993, the Women's Advocate Program has continued to build upon the early successes into the amazing program it is today, a highly respected program that is unique to the CAW. The Women's Advocate Program saves lives. Advocates continue to create safer workplaces, safer communities, and you are truly making a difference.